supplies that we'll need today are pencil, eraser, pencil sharpener, black and white color pencils, brown paper bag, 11 by 14 inches, pair of scissors, a ruler, and a roll of masking tape. And the first thing we're going to do with our paper is we're going to fold it, the 11 by 14 inches, in half to find a center line. And there we can see we have a nice crease right down the center of the paper. The next thing we're going to do is take our paper and fold it upwards in half. And we're going to find the center line. Later, that center line is going to be the eyes on our skull. And I might even go over that crease with my number 2 pencil and my ruler. But as you can see, we have our center line going down the page. We have our crossbar in the middle of the page. From this cross point where the 2 bars meet, we are going to draw a circle, a smaller circle at the bottom and a larger circle at the top. And this is the way we're going to frame the top of the cranium or the top of the skull and the mandible or the jawbone at the bottom. So I'm going to start from that cross point and draw a circle. Doesn't have to be perfect. If you get a wonky circle, you could always use your eraser and fix it. When I'm drawing, you will see me use my eraser over and over, making plenty of mistakes. But because we're using pencil and not Sharpie, it is easy to erase. Okay, so I have a circle starting at the top point. It comes about 2 fingers or an inch up from the bottom of the paper. And this is going to be the bottom of the chin, right at that bottom of that circle. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is make a point about at the top, about an inch down from the top of the paper, and that is going to be the top of our circle. The bottom of our circle is going to come down about, and you could eyeball this, you don't have to measure it. I'm going to come down about 2.5 inches. So my big circle is going to be taller than my smaller circle. So we have a big circle, we have a small circle. We have the center line, I have the bottom of the chin here, and I have the top of the head. Okay, the next line I'm going to do is we have a center line for our eyes in the center between the top of the head and the bottom of the head. That is the midpoint. That is the center of the face where the eyes go. The next line I'm going to add is about a ruler line up, and this is going to be about the top of our eye socket. Now you can eyeball this. This is just a guideline. You don't need a perfectly straight line, but it makes it a little easier. So this point is going to be the top of our eye socket. This is going to be in our eyes. It'll be a little lower in the eye socket. This is going to be another line, about not a full inch, but about a 1/2 inch. Going to make another guideline for the bottom of the eye socket. And again, I'm going to erase these lines later. Now, what other lines do I need to make? This line where the point was at the bottom of the circle is going to be the bottom of the nose. And this is going to be the bottom of the teeth right here. And let's see where that line falls. If I make a point between the nose and the chin, and this is true of our mouths too, human mouths, right in the middle is the point where the bottom of the teeth go. So I'm just going to draw that line there. Okay, now I have some guidelines to work with for my proportions of my skull. The next thing I'm going to do is lightly draw in the jawbone. And I'm thinking that I'm going to just start with a diagonal, doesn't have to be perfect, coming down on the right and coming down about the same angle on both sides, coming down a little lower than the eye socket, about where the bottom of the eye socket is, I think is a good point to start in there. And I can adjust it. We want about the same angle on both sides. So I'm going to eyeball it first. Now I can see I have a little bigger on one side than the other, so I'm going to make it a little bit wider on this side. Okay, so we want about the same distance on both sides. All right, so it's okay to erase, as you guys know, and I'm going to take out a little bit of that circle line there too while I'm at it. And it's gonna, believe it or not, it's gonna start to look like a skull pretty quickly. So I have the side of the jaw and I have the bottom of my chin. And I'm gonna do a little, maybe I'm gonna do a little dip in the chin for the jaw, coming around for now. I'll add the corner bone of the jaw later, but I'm just starting with very general shapes. So if you can draw straight lines and circles and triangles, you really can draw almost anything. Okay, so I have the jaw. All right, what else can I erase out? I think I can erase out a little of this bottom circle where it comes to the nose, the top of the bottom circle. I think I'm going to leave this one there for right now. Okay, now I'm going to start to work on top of this. Okay, the next thing I want to work on is my eye sockets. So on the eye sockets, I'm going to start at the top of the eye socket, this bar up here. This is going to be a little lower in the eye socket. Okay, the part of the eye socket too is where, right above is where our eyebrows go. They're pretty big in our skull. They'll be not quite as big if we're not just drawing our eyes here, but the socket that surrounds them. So I'm going to start, and they're not exactly circles, they're not exactly squares. They are really interesting shapes. So I'm going to start on one side, drawing a shape that's going to come down, come in a little bit. Maybe it's going to come in about 2 fingers on each side to start, and then I can adjust if it needs to be a little bit. Might need to be a little bit, maybe a little less of that, a little bigger there. Again, it's okay to erase, it's okay to make mistakes. So I have the corner of my eye socket started, and they're going to go down at an angle, working out to the side of the face. Now I might have this a little too big. I am not worried at this point in the slightest. Okay, I'm going to stop at the corner of the bottom of the eye socket right here at my guideline, and I'm going to draw, it's kind of a rounded-ish rectangle. Okay, so now I'm going to take out that center line here for my eyes. That's on this side. On the other side, I'm going to draw another eye socket about the same distance, maybe 1.5 fingers wide from the center. Again, this is where our nose would go, on the center. And I'm going to tilt downward. This one tilted downward. I'm going to tilt downward on this side too and come out towards the edge of the circle again. So I'm going to start up here, not trying to be perfect. And I'm going to work out to my outside, once again, to my outside edge. Okay, and I can kind of, hopefully you guys can see my lines here. They're not perfect. I can see this eye socket looks a little bigger than this one. So I can maybe make this one a little bit bigger, maybe make this one a little smaller. And here I am with my eraser, making some adjustments again. And again, I'm starting with very general shapes, not trying to be perfect, but I am trying to find good proportions on the skull. Okay, so I have 2 eye sockets. And I'll wait to add detail on those for a little bit. Then I'm going to think about the center of the nose. Now, there is a little portion of the nose, kind of on the bridge of our nose, that would start kind of up here as a shape, and it's just sort of a little bit of a rounded triangle coming down. So I'm going to start it with that, and I'm just going to keep that very light. And I'm going to erase out this cross. Maybe I'm going to erase out the crossbar in the eye. I'm going to erase out the center line for the eye because I know my eye sockets, they might be a little lopsided, but they are in the right place on the head. So I'm going to erase out some of those guidelines because I don't need them anymore. I'm going to keep my center line though, because that is quite helpful for the mouth, for the chin. And we're going to see that the center of the nose, center of the mouth, center goes right down to the center of the chin. Okay, so I have the top, a little bit of the bridge of the nose. Then I'm going to work on the opening inside of the nose. I'm going to start at that middle point right by the eyes, the center line for the eyes, for the top of this really cool, it's almost like an upside down heart shape. And again, it may not be perfect. I'm going to end the bottom of the nose just slightly above this top circle here, just a little bit in here. And it's a little bit like little bit like an upside down heart, I think. That's what I think of this shape. Yours might be a slightly different shape. We do want it to be symmetrical between the left and right side. Now I can see that this is a little tight on this side. We want this outside shape to be evenly spaced. Space between the eyes to be evenly spaced. And I can see this eye socket. I'm just going to move this eye socket over a little bit so they are more the same size. Okay. All right. Now I have that little center upside down heart shape working. I'm going to draw a little line, and I'm going to use the guideline of the center of my face. Isn't that line wonderful? That is right there. And I'm going to draw a little bit seeing into the skull while I'm here, because this is pretty easy to do. And then I'm going to clean it up. Okay. All right. And at this point, I'm going to erase the top of my center line coming to my nose because I don't need it right now. I'm going to erase these lines in here, clean this up, and I'll come back to my eye sockets. Now, I think the teeth are probably the hardest, just a little bit more on the nose. The teeth are probably the hardest part on the face. And I want to adjust the jaw a little bit because I'm missing the corner bone on the jaw. So I'm going to bring that corner bone in a little bit, add that in, and then I'm going to angle my jaw down from there. So I'm just going to adjust it. So we started with a nice diagonal, but now we're going to get a little bit more refined. So this, again, is the corner bone of the jaw. So you can feel it if you touch your jawbone. It's where your jawbone coming down from here bends and then heads down to your chin. And I'm going to fix it on this side too. Okay, so lots of erasing. I'm going to come down again, come out a little bit, and then I'm going to bend down at the same, just a little above the teeth, start to bend, angle the jaw in. And I want the jaw to be the same size on both sides. Let's see, it's a little less than 2 fingers. I want it to be the same size on that side too, because we want symmetry on the skull. Okay, so I'm going to fix that. And again, I am not perfect. Plenty of mistakes. Take your time. All right. All right. So now I have a nice jawline. I have the corner bone of my jaw. I've got the bottom of the chin working. I have a line for where the bottom of the mouth is going to go. I have the bottom of my nose right here. I'm happy with all of those parts. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is start to bring the jawbone down in the corner right here. So I'm going to start with, oh, you know what? Maybe before we do that, we should do the cheekbones. I don't know how I forgot the cheekbones, but they are really important. All right, so before we do the teeth, we're going to do the cheekbones. And we need a little work on the eye sockets. So we're going to go back to the eye sockets, towards the top of the eye sockets. And we're going to draw a little shape around them. And this is kind of like where our eyebrow is. And I'm going to start, again, very general, kind of going around almost like glasses on both sides of the eye. And this is going to part would stick out a little bit. And I'm going to kind of circle this around here on both sides. And this is going to help me lead down to my cheekbones. And if you feel your face, on your real face, you can feel where your cheekbones are, and they stick out. Okay, all right, so I'm going to come down from that line, and I'm going to draw the outside edge of the cheekbone. And I'm going to get more refined later. And here, I'm kind of making like a little bit of a triangle shape and a little bit of a cheekbone shape here. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to make it about the same height on both sides and sticking out about the same amount on both sides. And I'm just, to be a little less confusing, I'm going to erase that old part of the circle there, the old line here. Get rid of some of those guidelines that helped us in the beginning. They help us, again, find the symmetry. And I'm going to start to draw the eye socket, or the cheekbone, the cheekbone on this side. All right, so kind of curved up from the circle here. I'm going to do the same on this side as well. And I'm going to, let's see, a little here. Okay. A little bit lower. I want it to be about the same height on both sides. Okay. That was a little, it's about in the right spot now. Okay. I'm not sure they're big enough yet, but we can keep adjusting the shape and the symmetry on the cheekbones. Okay. Okay, so I have these two weird cheekbone shapes on the side, but I feel, and let's do a little, let's get just a little line under the eye sockets here. A little line there too. Those are just, again, little guidelines for shading and tinting later on in our drawing. And maybe I'm gonna make a little bit more of a point there, just to have a little fun with it. Okay, all right. Now, all right, that's not too bad. Okay, so now I can look at where the jaw is coming from, and I'm gonna draw, again, a diagonal coming down from each side, and I'm gonna start kind of general. All right, so the next part is we're going to do a diagonal down on each side from under the cheekbones. And we're going to come in at a diagonal. We're going to head towards that kind of line at the bottom of the teeth. So diagonal on each side to start. And I think that's not a bad place to work from. Okay. I think you probably can come in a little further towards the center, maybe a little bit further towards the center of the teeth, because the center of the teeth aren't quite as wide. And those are going to be our front teeth that we're going to draw at the bottom. Okay, and I think there's going to be we're going to add a little angle up for our molars too. So the front of our teeth are about sitting on this line. It won't be a perfectly flat shape. And then we're going to have a little diagonal up on each side. So a straight line, a little diagonal, a little diagonal. He's going to almost look like he's smiling at us. Okay. All right, so we have that. Then we're going to do a little line for the top of the teeth and the bottom of the teeth. So we have our line here for the bottom. Let's do a midpoint. And also the bottom teeth are much smaller than the top teeth. So we're going to make smaller bottom teeth and much bigger top teeth on the front. And that's going to be the top line of my teeth here. And I'm going to start with the general shape, and then we will get into the fun details of drawing the teeth. So I'm just going to draw a line going across, and then I'm going to go up a little bit at an angle again on both sides, slight angle for the sides of the molars and the front teeth. And here's front teeth. Oh, and here's our center line again. That's going to be between our two front big teeth. And let's see. Maybe I'm going to have that go across a little bit. We're going to have to extend that out, and then we'll do the teeth right in that shape right there. And then the top teeth are going to go back as well. Slight angle. Maybe that should be a little skinnier. Slight angle there too. They're going to get smaller as they're going away from us. Okay, then I'm going to draw the front part of our mouth, where our lips go. And I kind of forgot this shape here. So I start from the curve of my jawbone and I come down to the teeth. Nice general shape. And on the other side, I start from the curve of the jawbone and I come down to the teeth as well. And this also maybe needs to go up a little bit more at a diagonal. Okay. All right. Good. And then just a little quick line for the side of the teeth in here. And we need a little bit more on the edge here to give a little bit more of the jawbone here. So I'm just going to add a little extra edge here. And I'm going to bring this line is going to start to come down towards the bottom. So I'm going to do a couple of quick changes to find more detail in the jaw. And again, plenty of erasing. We're going to do a little line on the other side too, right here, coming down, kind of coming down on the edge, just a little bit there. Maybe this side's a little too wide here. A little bit of an edge. Okay, and we will come back to that part. Okay. All right, that's going to be mostly with tinting and shading in there. All right, so just a little bit extra, a little bit more detail in there. Okay, a little bit over, moving this a little bit over. Okay, all right. All right, let's try monkeying around with some teeth. All right, now I want to have nice big upper teeth, and the top where it kind of goes into the roots of our teeth, I'm going to break that line and I'm going to do nice big teeth and a curve at the top. Another tooth, I'm kind of curving the top, almost like maybe a tombstone shape for the top of these. And then I'm going to add the kind of our pointy dog teeth. No, we're not dog teeth, but kind of our canine tooth. They're a little bit of a point there. Then as the molars are going away from us, they're going to appear to be a little skinnier. So I'm still going to curve the top, but I'm going to make just some quick shapes here, flat, and they're going up at a diagonal. I think we're going to do the bottom teeth next. Now the bottom teeth are much smaller than the top teeth, but they're also going to have round shapes, but they're going to be at the bottom instead of the top. We're going to use that center line, and we're going to start to do two center skinnier, much skinnier. It's going to kind of break the bottom shape right there, tinier. We want the top teeth to be big. We want the bottom teeth to be small. So we have 1, 2, we're going to do one more on each side, 3, 4, we're going to curve the bottom. You can even do them a little crooked if you want to. You don't have to have perfect teeth. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 on each side. We're going to do the next tooth at the corner. And this is the one that's sometimes a little bit pointier. And one over here too. Okay, in our corner. And then we're going to do up at a diagonal, we're going to do our molars kind of coming to this edge here and here on the left and right side. So we're just going to do little square shapes, very simple, and maybe a little bit of a rounded bottom. 2, and I'm really making lines, 3, 4, and I have fit in 4 molars here. All right, and the other side I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to make four lines. 1, it's the first molar. 2, I'm going to round out the bottom a little bit. 3 and 4, that's my 4th molar. So I have my top and my bottom teeth. Now I might zhuzh it up a little bit, add a little bit more to it to show kind of the roots in the teeth by just adding some lines in between, just kind of above, that we kind of see these kind of tubey shapes coming up over, and I really think this is following the roots of our teeth coming up. This part got a little crooked, so I'm going to fix it. It's no worries. It's kind of for each tooth has a little bit of some marks there. We'll do that more with tinting and shading. And at the bottom, we're going to add a little bit between too. So it kind of makes this part of the mouth, the jaw and the teeth fill in a little bit down here. Okay. All right. So now we have a good jaw. Let's add a little detail, I think, to the eye sockets. We'll have a little bit of fun, with this, this part. Okay. So inside the eye socket, I'm going to start with this one. There's some little kind of holes in the back of the eye socket. And also there's a little bit of an edge. So I'm going to draw, just like to give it a little more three-dimensionality, a little line coming down this way. And this is going to lead to this dark, kind of dark hole shape in the bottom of the eye socket that comes around. I don't know what kind of shape I would think that is, right there. And I think just so we can start to see it, what I'm asking you to do, I'm going to give it a little, later I'll make it darker, a little bit of a light little bit of a light shade. Now I'm going to use, later I'm going to use my color pencils to shade this in so it's got a little bit more pop. But we see this kind of dark shape in the eye socket. We see a little bit more of the inside edge there. And I'm also going to do the same thing on the other side. So I have a little bit coming in again, a little bit of an edge to the eye socket coming through. And then I also have a dark shape on this side too. Same, it's kind of the same idea. So I have this weird, I don't know, weird shape on the interior of the eye, this kind of hole that comes through, that comes up. They don't have to be perfect. And it kind of bends around here too. I'm going to do the same thing over here on this, and I'm going to give it a little shade. And don't make it perfect now. I don't want it too dark with the pencil because I'm going to go over it later with, definitely with the color pencil to get it to be a little bit darker. And then I'm going to look at the nose. What detail can I add to the nose? Well, I've added the skinny line on the inside, and there's also some weird, you know what, maybe I'm going to get a little bit of a white edge along there. I'm going to erase these other lines out a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to have a little bit of a white lip where the bone, I can see kind of the highlights on the bone on both sides to make it a little bit, give it a little more dimension. And there's sort of a shape inside of the nose that you can see here. That's kind of a weird squiggly organic shape right in there in the darkness. And there's another one on this side too, something in the sinus cavity that we can kind of see. I'm just going to give a little bump there. I'm going to clean up the edge a little bit. And you know what, just so we can see the interior of the nose a little bit, I'm going to shade this in just with my pencil, just to give myself a little bit of understanding where the value is going to be. So value is the lightness or the darkness of the page. So I'm going to add a little bit of dark kind of right in there. It's going to make it look like it's receding, that the light is not hitting the interior of the nose. And again, I'm going to go over that, make it much darker later, but it gives us a little bit of shape there. Okay. All right. What are we forgetting? We have the teeth, the jaw. Maybe we can add a little bit of a bend in the jaw right here. Maybe we can add a little bit of hole or crack in the jaw. Make a little line here. Add some lines, a little bit of line or edge in here, coming down the jaw. Make it a little bit bumpier. We're going to add a little bit to the cheekbone. Okay, we're going to make it look like it's got a little bit of showing a little bit more of the jaw and the cracks in the jaw in the surface there. Okay, so right kind of under the eye, there's like a little crack that comes down towards the bone here. And there's might be a little bit of a hole right in here as well, because this is an old skull, a little bit of a hole here. And again, also kind of a little bit of a crack, kind of a crack mark coming down on this side too. Okay, so just a little bit of detail on the head. Okay, now I'm going to draw some shapes in the top of the skull. Okay, so we are going to come right from the corner of the eye. So we have the eye socket here. We sort of have like where our eyebrow would be here. We're going to come in and we're going to draw kind of a curved shape up to the top of our circle. And I'm going to do the same, kind of the same idea on the other side. I'm going to come in from here, come in, and then go outward. And there is going to be some cracks on the top. Sorry, my paper's a little bumpy. On the top of the head as well. Okay. Let's add some little bit more detail. Okay, let's play a little bit with the cracks, some cracks on the head. We're going to go right above the nose crevice and kind of where the bridge of our nose is. I'm going to do a little bit of a crack, in the skull right there. Just a little bit of detail. All right, out here on the outside right side of the paper, we sort of have this shape here. Let's give it another kind of curved shape in here. And then we're going to do a little bit of a zigzagged, a little bit of a crack detail in the skull too. I'm going to add another little shape coming up from the side of the eye socket here, coming up. Another little shape, just some shapes on the side of the skull. Let's give it a little crack, just a little crack in the skull, maybe a little hole there, a little hole here. Just have a little bit fun with it to make it look a little bit older. All right, we're going to move to this side and add a little bit of detail on that side as well. We have our line here. I thought we would start another little bit of a crack coming up here, and we're going to make it a little zigzag line that comes up to the top of the skull. Kind of fun to play with that, a little bit of the edge. I'm going to erase a little bit of that line there. Okay. Okay, all right, so we have lots of detail in the skull, and we have some cracks in the skull, and I think we have fairly good proportions. We are probably ready for some tinting and shading, but maybe real quickly we want to just go over these little lines for the cracks in the skull. So I'm going to just, and I don't think we've done this part yet, add a little crack around the nose, and I'm going to push a little bit harder for that cracked line. I'm going to add a little crack going up the side of the skull over here. I might even add this a little bit as a crack here. On the left side, same thing here. We're going to come in and add a little bit of a cracked line to give the skull some interest and some more detail. And I'm going to do, again, use my eraser. If you make any mistakes, use your eraser. That is what it's for. No big deal. Little crack right here. A little bit of a crack in the eye socket on this side too. All right, little crack. Just going over my crack on the little crack detail on the jawbone. Just a little crack on both sides. In the eye socket, there are little cracks as well. Okay. I think we're ready for some tinting and shading, and this is my favorite part when I make art. So the first thing we're going to do is look a little bit at the shadows. And before you start that, if you want to just take a moment and freeze your camera and make sure you have all the steps done, all the lines in, all the cracks, and your proportions look pretty good. Again, mine's not perfect, but it looks pretty good. So don't worry about being perfect. Let's worry about trying to have fun with it. Okay, so if you want to freeze the camera, take a moment, correct your lines, and then come back. And the next things that we need are our white colored pencil and our black colored pencil. You can also use, and I didn't add this to my list, but you may, if you have a lot of tools in your house and you're one of my teen class students or an adult student, you can use a black and white charcoal pencil too. And this would really pop the lights and the dark shading. Now, if you do use charcoal pencils, you're going to get more smudging. I think I'm going to use this later for the bright highlights. But again, use what you have in the house. Either way, it's absolutely fine. Okay, all right, I'm just going to use the color pencils to start. I think we're going to look at some core shadows on the skull itself. So I'm looking for some shading. My light is coming from the my left hand side. So on this side of the skull, it would be darker. Lights on the left, core shadows on the right of the skull. So I'm going to do a line, a curved line coming in the skull, kind of coming around lightly with my charcoal, colored pencil, kind of coming right in here. Now, I don't want to do too hard of a line because I'm going to shade it. I'm going to erase a little bit of it. Hopefully you guys can see that part a little bit. I'm going to have some shading on this part as well in the eye sockets, but I'm going to start with some light shading here. I'm going to use the side of the tip of my color pencil, my black color pencil. Hopefully I'm using black and not blue. Black color pencil, and I'm just going to go lightly. I can get darker later, and I'm going to use the side so I can go kind of quickly with it. And I don't want a hard edge along here, along the line, because I do not want the skull to look blocky. So I'm going to start lightly with the side, and I'm just going to kind of move through. My lines come right through this. I'm going lightly. Now, if I didn't have a colored pencil, I could even be using a regular pencil for this. I think a graphite pencil would be just as dark as this, maybe not, maybe even a little bit darker. So I'm just starting, again, with the light core of the shadow. Now I went a little bit outside of my skull, so I'm going to clean up that edge a little bit with my pink eraser. And there we go. All right, so it's a little bit. I think I'm going to go a little darker at the edge to make a little bit more volume. So towards the outside edge, I'm going to go a little bit darker. And to get darker, I'm going to push harder with the colored pencil. Again, so harder pressure means that it is darker. Okay, so we have some there. Again, I went out a little out of the lines. I'm going to use my pink eraser, and I'm going to lighten that, any little bits outside of the mark out. Now, I think I still could go darker at the edge. This time I'm going to use the tip or the point of my pencil, and I'm going to go push a little darker because I'm trying to create the illusion that the skull looks round. All right. And I'm trying to keep it fairly smooth, little tiny, tight strokes. Now, in here, I want to get a little bit darker past the ridge of the eye. So I'm going to push a little harder right in here past the eye socket edge, kind of almost down to the side down here, down to the top of the cheekbone, jawbone, top of the cheekbone. Okay, so I have a little bit of dark in there coming out. Okay, I'm going to go back to my eye socket, and just to show you, you don't need to switch, but I have a charcoal pencil. I'm going to try to this, but if you're just using a color pencil, keep with this, it's fine. I just want to show you how dark a charcoal pencil would get. So in the eye socket, inside the eye socket, I'm going to just show you what the difference is if I lay in some darks, and I'm going lightly and kind of smudging. Maybe I'll go right with my little dark crack in the eye to start. See now, see the contrast? Now, if I'm using a charcoal pencil instead, I have to make sure I am not leaning on it, because if I lean on it, look what's going to happen. It smudges, right? But if I smudge, if I was using this or I smudge my pencil, I could always use my eraser. But I do want gray in there. So I want this inside here to be a gray, but I also want to see kind of the crack in the eye. And I'm just going to smudge a little with my finger. And I'm going to go over this crack a little darker in here. This has got a little gray in here too. And this isn't quite as dark on this side. I'm going to go a little bit darker at this edge. Now, I definitely could still just be using my color pencil for this part. Okay. All right. Now, maybe if I get too dark, either way with the color pencil or the charcoal pencil, I could just erase a little bit out for that. Let's just see if I can get the edge here a little bit darker too. All right, coming in here, and actually it's working. So I'm going to get a little bit darker on this edge here, on the back edge of the skull. I'm going to smooth it with my finger a little bit. We're going to go a little darker right besides the eye socket, and we're going to do under the eye a little light shadow down here, right under, almost like we're going around sunglasses. That is the ridge around the eye socket's a little lifted right under. We would catch a little bit of a shadow. On the side of the cheekbone, we are going to add some shading here too. Okay. All right, kind of right to the cracky area. Okay, we'll go a little bit, just a little bit darker at the top, just to give it a little more depth. because that's being blocked. A little darker in here. Okay. A little bit darker at the edge. Okay, and if you're using the color pencil too, we're pushing harder if we're using the color pencil. If you want to go lighter on the charcoal or the charcoal pencil, we do lighter pressure. Okay, we're going to jump into the socket of the nose. I'm going to just do a little bit of dark in here, very, very light gray in there, just to push it back just a little bit in the socket of the nose. All right, on the side, because the light is coming from this side, on the side of this, we would have a little bit of dark past the eye, kind of in here. Okay, I'm going to come down right around the teeth. Add a little dark right around there too. Okay, so I think that side looks pretty good. Okay, so we're going to do a little shading on this side of the skull, but not as much. Mostly, we're going to do in the eye socket. So I'm going to come around, try not to lean on the charcoal, and I'm going to do a little shading in the eye lightly. Okay, but this part is very dark. So I'm going to make sure I'm pushing really hard to get some nice contrast and some true black too, which is lovely to have in your drawing. Now the light's coming from this side inside the eye socket. The light can't reach here, so I'm going to make this edge over here a little bit darker. I'm going to put some gray in here too. And in here it's a little bit lighter. Under here we're going to get a little bit of gray under here too, right under the eye socket. Okay, a little bit in the corner bone. We'll do a little bit of shading here. Not much, not as dark as this side, just a little bit. Let's put a little crack in the chin, a little hole or crack over here, just to have a little bit of fun with it. And because the light is not reaching right in here, this part's going to be a little darker too. Okay, now this looks good. It's starting to have volume, but it is definitely missing the pops of the light. It doesn't look like a true skull yet because it's not popped the white. So we're going to really quickly add some tinting. Again, tinting is adding the light. Now again, you can use your white color pencil and get a nice result. So again, you can use your color pencil on the side and get a nice light. So if I go lightly, I get a soft white. Actually, that's quite pretty there. If I want to go a little brighter, I can push with the tip and push much harder where I want it to be much brighter. By pushing with the tip, it's going to get the tip versus the side. It's going to get a little brighter. And if I lose my shape, I see I went over my edge there, no worries. I can use my eraser, or I can go in and fix my shape to alter it with the dark. So it's okay to go back, even though when you start doing your tinting, it's okay to clean up your edges if you make a little mistake or you still forgot to add. I feel like I need a little bit of shadow right here. It's okay to go in and still add a little bit of dark and clean up your lines or pop pop your edges a little bit, right? Just to clean it up a little bit. Okay, and again, keep checking your hands. Make sure your hands are clean. Okay, now I want to put a little light over here. We probably have a little bit of, say I forgot this part, that's okay. I think we'd have a little gray, maybe just a little bit of a shadow under the nose. Not much, just barely there. Okay, so soft, so a little soft. I'm gonna bring a little white in between. It's not the teeth, but it's like where the bump of the root is for your teeth. Okay, I'll come back to the teeth. I'm gonna do those last because I want those to be really bright. Right on here, even though it's dark, I'm gonna pull this edge out just by pulling a little light there. I'm gonna make this a little bit brighter in here. Make sure that's nice and bright. Maybe right in here a little bit brighter in here because this is again where the light side is coming from. All right. We just want to build the whites. Okay, all right, so now let's do a little bit on this jaw. Not terribly white because the light's being blocked a little bit by the cheekbone. Now I'm looking at the top of the skull and it doesn't, since I added all this dark in here, this doesn't appear to be dark enough anymore. So I'm gonna go back and add a little more dark in here to get a little more drama and volume. I wanna create the illusion of roundness on the skull. On the left side of each tooth is going to be very bright. I'm going to try to pop a bright white. As it's going to the right, I might even add a little bit of gray. But the ones in the front, I do want to pop. And I'll leave a little bit of that right side for shadow. All right, and I might clean up my black edge around, but I am getting pretty done here. I think this looks pretty good. So you can sharpen your pencil a little bit and then trace around the teeth where it got a little bit smudgy, pop any darks, pop any lights, and then we're gonna sign it because we are done. Okay, so I'm glad you were here with me drawing today. I'm glad you were up to the skull challenge on brown paper. Step back, show your family, post this on, send this back to the museum and post your skulls at Attleboro Arts Museum on Facebook, Instagram. We would love to see them. Or you can email them to Miss Abby too at the Attleboro Arts Museum. Okay, so thanks a lot for today. This was Miss Lisa from the Attleboro Arts Museum. Thank you and goodbye.